everyone, and welcome back to my channel. If you haven't seen me before, my name is Heather. If you have seen me before, then you already know that my name is Heather, so welcome back. I'm a brunette now. I dyed my hair at the end of March, and I don't know if I ever pointed it out, but it looks a lot darker. I dyed it the same color, just like yesterday, but yes. If this is your first time coming to my channel and you don't know who I am, like I said, I am Heather, I am a lesbian, and I'm in a long-distance relationship with my beautiful girlfriend, Alaya. And with that relationship, we get lots of questions, which, fair enough. Long-distance relationships aren't really the norm, so it makes sense that we get these questions. And I've made a video about questions that long-distance couples are tired of getting, or things not to say to long-distance couples. I will put it right there. But today I want to just go in a bit deeper and talk specifically about what it's like being in a long-distance relationship when you don't live in the same country as your partner. Obviously, long-distance relationships come in all different shapes and sizes, and sometimes couples can be in a long-distance relationship but both still live in the same country. Like if someone lives in Pennsylvania and the other person lives in California, they're both in the United States, but they're quite far away from each other. In terms of my relationship, I am from Canada and my girlfriend is from the United States, Pennsylvania. So we are on the same continent, but we're not in the same country. So that comes with its own challenges. So anyways, I'm not going to drag this intro out any longer than it needs to be, so let's get into the video. So one of the questions that Alaya and I get tons and tons is, when will you be moving to each other so that you don't have to be long distance anymore? Why don't you just move to the United States? Why doesn't she just move to Canada? And all variations of that. And unfortunately, it is more complicated than one of us just moving to the other's country, though we wish it was that easy. When you're wanting to move to a new country that isn't your home country, the country doesn't just let you in. They don't just let whoever wants to go into the country and live there in, because, you know, the economy and stuff, they want you to be contributing something to the nation. That is my understanding. Could be completely wrong, but I believe that's why. And so in terms of Canada and the United States, we are each only allowed in each other's country for 6 months out of the year. So in a perfect world right now, I would go and visit her for 6 months, and then we'd come here to Canada and she'd visit me for 6 months, and we'd just go back and forth doing that. Unfortunately, that is not possible for many reasons. We are both in school, we both have other commitments, and also COVID right now. And I also believe that the customs and the government wouldn't be too cool with us just going back and forth like that, because it's very tricky. And I don't know if you guys have ever watched Sam and Monica. I will leave a link to their channel down below. They're a long distance couple. They're very cute. One of them is from the United States and one of them is from the UK, and they've had some complications with going back and forth like that. So it's just a very tricky thing to navigate. And so there are a few different routes that you can take to move to another country, specifically Canada and the US, moving between those two. I'm going to be talking about Americans moving to Canada because that's the plan that Alaya and I are likely taking. Like, that's what we've sort of planned out. Looking back at my scenario earlier, if someone from Pennsylvania wanted to move to California to be with their partner, I believe it wouldn't be as difficult. Yes, you are moving between states, but I think that the things that you have to do in order to make that possible are a lot less tricky than moving between countries. But Alaya and I will have to figure out the whole moving between countries thing, because we're obviously going to be together and we're not going to be long distance forever, so we're gonna have to figure it out. To my understanding, the first step to moving to a different country is a visa, and Alaya and I have looked into different visas. There's a marriage visa and there's a work visa, and I believe there are probably more, but those are the two that we've looked into the most. And for us, it makes the most sense to go for a work visa because we'd like to live together before we get engaged and get married. That's just our preference. So the way that that works is that Alaya is going to graduate from school in 2 years, and then she has to work for 2 years in the United States before she will be able to apply for the visa to move to Canada. And even when she applies after that period of time, there's no guarantee that she's going to be permitted to get the work visa and come live and work here. But assuming she does get the visa, that will allow her to move from the US to Canada and live here as long as she's working here. I don't know specifically how long these visas last for, but I believe that they can last up to 5 years. Don't quote me on that though, I don't know for sure. If I can find any more information on that, I will put it on the screen. And so with that visa, if she suddenly lost her job and couldn't find another job, she would have to move back to the United States. I believe they give a bit of a grace period if you lose your job and you're trying to find another one, but if you consistently don't have a job, they're going to send you back, which is quite scary for Alaya and I, because obviously we would like her to stay permanently, and that's what we're working towards. But with this visa, if for some reason she loses her job, she would have to go back to the United States. So that's what makes it so tricky. And so after a bit of time, once Alaya and I are married, she will either try to switch from a work visa and get permanent residency, or I will sponsor her with a marriage visa, and then she will eventually work towards permanent residency. But this is also very difficult. It takes a lot of paperwork, a lot of learning. She has to take a test to do all of this, and it takes years and years, and it can be quite complicated. So as it stands right now, we have about 4 more years left of long distance. We are 2.5 years in right now, so still quite a bit more time, and we wish we could shorten that, but as I've explained, it is not super easy for an American to move to Canada or vice versa. So that's the current plan, but in 2 years when Alaya graduates, we're hoping that she'll be able to move down to Washington so that she'll be closer to me, still living in the United States, but closer to me. Moving on to a new topic. With long distance relationships, obviously, you don't live in the same place, so you have to travel to visit each other, and that can be a bit trickier when you don't live in the same country, as I mentioned earlier. So when you are traveling between 2 different countries, you have to go through customs, and that is where they just ask you like, oh, where are you going? Why are you going there? How long will you be gone? When are you coming back? All of that kind of stuff. And like I said earlier, Sam and Monica have encountered some trouble because they have been going back and forth for a few years now, and the customs people can get a bit suspicious, seeing as you guys keep flying here and there, and they're like, why do you keep coming back to the United States like so much? What's going on with that? So that can definitely make things a bit trickier and a lot more difficult for long distance couples living in different countries, especially right now during this COVID situation. And the final thing I want to talk about is when people are actually able to move from one country to another in a long distance relationship. So with this, obviously it's a very good thing. You get to finally move to your partner and be in the same place as them, and that's really, really great. But it's also quite a difficult thing because you're basically moving from a country that you've lived in your entire life and from people that you've known your entire life to a place where obviously you know some people, you know your partner, you maybe know their friends and family, but you don't really know that much, and that can be really isolating. I've heard, obviously Alaya and I haven't experienced this, but it's something that is quite difficult and it can be hard to adjust to. And with this, again, certain visas don't allow you to fly back to your home country for a certain period of time after you have moved. I know I was watching Jess and Gabriel, I will also link them down below. They were a long distance couple from Australia and the United States, and when Jess moved to the United States from Australia, she wasn't able to go back to Australia for 2 years while she was working on getting her green card, I believe. So it can definitely have a lot of complications, and that can be really, really difficult, especially if you're super duper close with your family. You basically have to move away from them and then for a certain period of time not go back to see them, which can be very hard. All right, that is all I'm going to say. I'm sorry that this was all over the place. I didn't really have a set plan for this video. I just wanted to sort of talk about what it's like being in a relationship when you live in 2 different countries, being in a relationship across borders, because although long distance relationships can be worth it if you're with the right person and you know you want to be with this person, it can also be very difficult, very costly, and take a lot of work and effort to be able to live with each other finally and break the distance, especially if you live in 2 different countries. I hope you were all able to get some sort of information out of this video, and hopefully it helped you learn a bit more about what it's like dating across borders, and if you are looking into going into a long distance relationship when you live in 2 different countries, hopefully this gave you some insight about what that's kind of like, because it can be quite difficult. Anyway, that is all that I'm going to say for this week's video. If you guys have any other video requests, please leave them down below, because I like to make videos that you guys want to see. And I hope you all enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next week for another one. Bye, guys.